Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Gitte Mary and today I am going to talk about veganism and plant-based eating and my own personal journey and a little bit of an update for you guys, I think. So I have made so much content about my diet and what I eat. I've also specifically said that veganism is not a diet. If you're plant-based, that is kind of different from being vegan, because veganism also transitions into other aspects rather than just food, but also clothing, cosmetics, entertainment, and your relationship with animals and other people in general. So I made a video about my journey towards veganism a couple of years ago because I used to be a really big meat eater, really big fan. It was a big shock for my family when I started cutting out meat and dairy, and it was a long process and a long journey. So I didn't just do everything overnight, but I transitioned very slowly, I might add. And it's been 7 years of veganism for me. This definitely sounds like one of those I'm not vegan anymore videos, but that's not what that is. Or I guess that depends on your perspective. I'm looking forward to hearing the reactions at least. But I want to check in and talk to you guys about my relationship with food and where I am in my relationship with food and veganism and plant-based eating. So I would say, first of all, getting it right out there, that ethics has never been my number one motivator for changing my diet or my lifestyle. It's always been the environment. It's always been the impact of animal agriculture and industrialized factory farming that's been my main motivator for cutting out meat. There are definitely low impact, low emission ways of consuming meat and dairy. It's just that the majority of the animal products that's produced today are not produced sustainably and with low emissions. They are produced with factory farming. It is incredibly detrimental to our environment and also to other aspects of living and life. But that's a whole other story. You can cut down your emissions by up to 70% by cutting out meat and dairy, depending on what your diet looks like. So it's an incredibly effective tool in terms of lowering your individual carbon footprint. So that is my main motivator. Now, I have been in contact and in touch with the ethics part as well. It's something that's fascinated me and I've sort of gone through waves. I don't know if this is relatable or not. I've definitely had periods where I've felt the ethics parts more than other times. And when I made my journey to veganism video, I think I was at my peak in terms of ethics, where I was really focusing on the injustices towards animals, which is still an incredibly valid thing to also talk about. It's just not my main motivator, not what my channel is necessarily about. But a lot has happened in 7 years, and one thing that I think happens to basically every person living within sustainable movements or within any type of movement or lifestyle in general is that you evolve in it, you mature in it, and you change your perspective. That doesn't mean that you think what you did previously was wrong, it's just that you change. And I've definitely had some experiences recently where I've really felt or really thought about, oh wow, I have really changed. So one thing, for one, is that my communication and the way I talk about veganism and cutting out meat and dairy has drastically changed over the last few years. So when I started going vegan myself, when I was just getting into veganism and when I realized how much of an impact changing your diet actually has, I had a period of time where I could not understand why everyone wasn't doing this. Why everyone wasn't trying to be vegan, because it was so clearly one of the most effective ways of lowering your carbon footprint. You guys catch my drift. So I couldn't understand, and I saw, the moment I started going into veganism, I also realized that a lot of people that had been vegans for years and years and years, also making content online, they were starting to reject veganism. They were starting to change their diets back to including animal products, and I had zero understanding as to why you would do that. I could not comprehend. I thought it was hypocritical. I thought it was just disappointing, and it made me really angry and sad. I don't think I've talked about that a lot on my channel, also because what other people do has never really been my main focus. It's been what I do myself and like walk the walk, talk the talk, you know, guys. But it's something that bothered me a lot to see that a lot of people have started rejecting veganism, because It's the most effective way of doing. Why are we doing this? There's seagulls outside and they are having a blast. Let me tell you right now. I hope you guys can deal. Just a couple of years ago, I started, it was a gradual thing for me, how I started thinking and talking about veganism, especially in context of lectures and public speaking, my job. So for the past 2 years or something, I don't know exactly when this happened, I started not talking about how veganism can fix climate change. I started talking about how if you're concerned about the environment, it does not make sense to not reassess your relationship with meat and dairy. It doesn't mean that the whole world has to go vegan. Realistically speaking, that's never going to happen, and it also doesn't have to happen. But overconsumption of animal products is a really big issue today, and if we're trying to lower our impact, we need to think about this as well. It doesn't mean that you have to go vegan or you have to go vegetarian. You can do whatever feels possible and practicable for you to do. That is something I would never have said when I started out my own vegan journey. When I was a vegetarian before going vegan, I also constantly fell into meat accidents where I would eat meat whenever I had a rough day or really felt like it or whatever. I don't think it happened a bunch of times, but it definitely happened enough for me to not actually be vegetarian. First, when I went vegan, I was actually able to commit to changing my diet for good. But everybody is super duper different and we all have different relationships with food. And something that I've become very aware of over the past few years is that we have to have a healthy and calm relationship with food. We owe it to ourselves to not demonize food and moralize food, and to have a chill, relaxed, and healthy relationship with foods. And demonizing certain foods, both online when you're talking about how everybody should go vegan, or talking to crowds IRL about how everybody should go vegan, otherwise whatever they're doing in terms of sustainability is not valid, is just so detrimental. And I don't think I've been that much of a hard ass about it, but in contrast to how I'm feeling now, I've definitely had like a harder approach to how I talk about diet. I've also slipped up actually, which is something like, it's not a big deal. I think it's so absolutely silly to make it a big deal, but it is a very visible part of how my perception has changed. So recently I was in a train and the train was delayed. We were delayed 4 hours. It was awful. And I was sitting next to a woman who offered me one of her cheese sandwiches. Now, having just a piece of cheese, I haven't had in years. 7, I think. I haven't had it in a really long time. And I said to her, I don't actually like cheese, but I would love this sandwich, but do you want to take it out and then put it into your own sandwich? That would be amazing. But there was still definitely something in the bread. There was mayo in it. There were other ingredients that were definitely not vegan, but there wasn't actual cheese or meat, obviously. But I had this bread with some lettuce and some dressing and some mayo in it, and it was one of the first things that I've had in years that wasn't 100% vegan. Not by accident. I've slipped up by accident where I thought something was vegan and then it wasn't. Like, that's not a big deal. We do the best that we can. We're not gonna beat ourselves up about that. But that was the first time I actively made a decision to do something. And I was thinking about it afterwards, not with a bad conscience or anything, because I was so starving I could not remember my own last name. And that is not why I went vegan, to sit there and torture myself for no apparent reason when there are food actually available. That's just absolutely silly to me. I wouldn't have thought that though when I began my journey. I would have starved. I would have been so hungry, I would have gotten sick from it. I am 100% sure that I would have done that because it meant so much to me to be perfect in this regard. I've accepted many years ago that I'm not going to be perfectly plastic free, but I could be perfectly vegan. Fuck that. But seriously though, what? No one is gonna give me a medal for being perfectly vegan. What? Why? No one. Absolutely no one is going to praise you for sitting there in a train and starving for no reason. Absolutely nobody's gonna do that. So, and that was a few months ago. I also recently had a veggie burger that I don't know if it was vegan or vegetarian. I'm pretty sure it was just vegetarian. And you know what? I'm not gonna beat myself up about it because it was the only fucking option available. I'm actively choosing to not starve right now because at this moment in time, my sustainable diet and my low emissions diet is important to me. It's also something I've done for so long that it's not hard work to make the right choices. Another thing that's incredibly important to me is maintaining a healthy relationship with food and not actively starving myself when I don't have to, because life is too damn short for that as well. There's no need. There's no need at all. And look at this, the planet is still standing. What a revelation. And I think those experiences say everything about where I've come from and where I am now in terms of my sustainable diet. So I am considering simply just only talking about being plant-based. Not that I find that there's anything wrong with saying vegan. However, when you're actively sometimes choosing to just be vegetarian, even though that just is so loaded and like incredibly obnoxious, some people might take offense to the fact that I would call myself vegan, even though I've made these very limited number of choices, but still made these choices. The cookbook I'm making, by the way, as well, that I am just about to finish, that's coming out during autumn, is also going to only talk about plant-based ingredients and plant-based recipes. I'm not going to mention veganism in this cookbook as well. And the main reason for that is, well, I have this relationship with food now where it's, to say it in the least, it's a lot more chill. I don't know. But also not to scare people away. And I don't hope vegans take this the wrong way whatsoever, but veganism can turn people off if they have a pre-coded idea and association of what veganism is. They might not be as likely to pick up my cookbook if it says veganism all over it, but if it's plant-based, it might be more approachable and relatable to more people. So we're choosing a chill approach. For me, this feels more comfortable, and I also hope I'll be able to reach a wider audience having this approach to it instead. But I would love to hear what you guys' opinions are on choosing veganism versus plant-based living. I don't know. I also recently talked to a friend who's been vegan way longer than I have, and she told me that she recently discovered that she has become intolerant or allergic to legumes, so she had to incorporate other types of foods into her diet in order to not feel malnourished or sick or whatever. So she's had to incorporate certain types of animal products. And a couple of years ago, I would probably have been a little bit disappointed by that, which is insane. That is wild, to feel disappointed about someone making proper health decisions for themselves, but I digress. But that conversation went a lot differently and was just like, yeah, of course, like, sure. Like, obviously, if you find out you're allergic to what you have been basing your diet on for so long, and if you don't want to not have one or two things that you can do, that's fair. Like, it's completely okay. I think also, to be honest, the official definition of veganism is avoiding animal products and animal-derived ingredients and services, etc., to the extent to which it is possible and practicable to do so. And that obviously changes depending on what situation you're in, on what your health situation is, on where you're located in the world. There's so many variables that can make this incredibly difficult. So I guess I would love to hear what you guys think. My diet isn't going to change, but what kind of standard I hold myself to in situations that are not everyday situations, that is changing. That is becoming more like, okay then, still making the best decisions in the position I am in a certain situation, but what I eat on the daily is never going to change. But I think when you're in a certain lifestyle or movement for a long time, you have to alter it. You have to mature within it. You have to find ways of making this work for you, just not only just short term, but long term. And burning out, especially in movements like zero waste, veganism, etc., is something that happens to a lot of people. And I want to create a lifestyle and a life for myself that I will be able to maintain forever. So that means cutting myself some goddamn slack, because then I'll be able to do this for a longer period of time, and over time that will also be more sustainable. So I'd love to hear you guys' opinion on this. And are you disappointed that I'm sort of, this is so dramatic, but stepping away from veganism, which is obviously not what I'm doing, but I hope you catch my drift. There are nuances here, and actually and honestly, I've been a little bit scared talking about this online, because this is those types of nuances that some people might choose to ignore, or they might jump to conclusions or misunderstand what it is that I'm saying. So I hope we can have a calm and reasonable discussion about the level of perfectionism we are currently, or some people are holding themselves to, and how that is not necessary to live a sustainable life. How sustainability are a million different things. And yes, some things are more effective than others. It's more effective to cut out beef than cut out plastic straws. We need to cut ourselves some slack because we want to be able to be sustainable badasses for a long time. Okay, anyway, that's this video. I'm really happy that I actually sat down and talked to you guys about this. I would love to hear your opinions, and let me know where you are, and if you have anything you want to change or anything you've been thinking about regarding your own diet recently, let me know. This is a place and a community for a calm and rational, healthy relationship with food while we're also lowering our emissions, okay? Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day and take really good care of yourself. Until next time. Bye. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green, zero-waste content, and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!